today's session is Tell Me About Yourself. And this is something that we can use for interviews, pitches, branding. Anytime we first meet people, we need to sort of share with them who we are and introduce ourselves. So we have a variety of folks who are all in the mock interview channel, where we help each other with practicing for interviews. So among them, Michael Hill and Jasmine Reynolds are here today. Our agenda today, we'll go through and do a couple of quick introductions for our volunteers. We're going to review the Tell Me About Yourself formula, or formula, and we will go through some interview tips. And then what we're going to do for our breakouts is they're going to be very structured today. Okay, so it's going to be up to 2 minutes for your introduction, 1 minute for the feedback, then 2 minutes for the second person's introduction, and then 1 minute for the feedback. Then we come back together and we go back out. And this is an experiment. So you might be going out to a different person, or you might be going back to the same person. We'll see. But we're going to just keep doing rounds and rounds of this. Okay. And then for the first round, it's the person with the first, with their first name, the earliest in the alphabet will start first. In round 2, it'll be the first name that is closest to the end of the alphabet will go first, and then back to the first earliest person in the alphabet, first name, in round 3. All right, sound good? And then we'll come back and we'll share what kinds of things we learned and what our action plans are going to be and that sort of thing. All righty. Now, another thing I want to do is share some of the people who have been helping out in the mock interview channel. And Rushi Sanathra is down here in the lower right. It was his idea to do a mock interview channel. And then he got a job, got super busy, had to move, and he hasn't been able to help out as much, but he'll be back. And it is in his spirit that we continue on and help each other. Gary and Deidre and Kevin are not, and I think also Nicole, are not currently looking for roles, but they are helping out folks. And so there's information about how you can sign up to do mock interviews with them. And then everyone else, when you're signing up to do a mock interview, be sure to exchange, just as Michael and I did before we started recording. Jasmine, do you want to do your introduction?
Oh gosh, okay, sure.
Great. Hi, Jasmine.
Hi. Hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm an enterprise customer success professional with 8 years experience in the pharmaceutical medical device SaaS industry. I am an expert in value-based selling and highly skilled in renewal. My superpower is relationship nurturing.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I would say that's really strong. You just want to memorize that a little bit so it feels a little more conversational and rolls off your tongue. And you might think, well, that's kind of harsh though, because Jasmine's being recorded and she was in front of all these people. That's such a high stress situation. But isn't an interview a high stress situation, right? So practice it so that even in a high stress situation, you're going to feel comfortable with what you're saying. Because that's what interviews are, is high stress situations, right? So if the more you feel conversational about it, the more they're gonna be like, oh, this person can handle anything. All right, now you might be wondering who else is a volunteer in the mock interview channel, and the answer is you. Just come and join, and you can be a part of it, all right? All right, so did everybody get your Tell Me About Yourself? Yeah, anybody not get it? Put something in the chat if you're still looking for the link so that some of the volunteers here can help you with that. All righty. And let's dig into some interview tips. All right. So I think Gary is under the weather. He wasn't able to come. but he certainly had one good piece of advice, and that was if you stand or sit forward when you're doing an interview, that's going to sort of get you more engaged. And the whole point is when you're in this Zoom, like the energy that you put out comes across. It's really apparent, and you want to show that enthusiasm, right? And so that's another reason then too, why you might surround yourself with positive Post-it notes and pictures that make you smile, right? Because no one can see what's behind your monitor. They can't even see what's on your monitor. Like when I was doing this introduction, right? I could have the picture of you here, or I could have my interview notes here, and I'm looking straight into the camera and I'm smiling and I'm saying, hi, my name is Jan Young. I'm a CS professional with over 15 years of professional experience in blah, blah, blah. And I just said professional twice, but that's okay, right? So there you go. Like that's the kind of thing that you can do because you can't tell what I'm looking at right now, right? So think about how you're going to set yourself up for success in that respect. And let me, don't do this part though, because now I have to get back. All right, so there's more interview tips that we generated for you yesterday when we were prepping. Michael, Jasmine, which ones resonated the most with you before we send everybody off? Yeah, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as interview tips, I would say that number one, specifically, I'm in the thick of my job search. So I have found a lot of value in reading through the job description in detail and understanding point by point what questions I may be asked, and then creating responses to those questions with using the STAR interview method. So kind of, yeah.
So like a great way to prepare is to think about what questions you might be asked, practice it, so that then it's not a surprise where you're like, oh, deer in headlights. Yeah. Right.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And myself being a musician, being a performer, I have the tendency to think I can just wing something. Just, oh, here's a cool question. I know my background. It's my background. I can tell you my story. But I found that it doesn't go nearly as well as I thought it would, right? So definitely, yes for musicians, shout out musicians, and definitely for me, rehearsing everything beforehand, so I'm not winging anything, and just having that level of preparation so that I can communicate clearly and concisely what it is that interviewer is looking for. Something I learned also just from Jan is understanding what is this company's pain points around hiring for this role by looking in detail at that job description and saying, how can I show that based off of my experience, I am a strong fit for this position, by telling that story, hitting on my experience that shows, yeah, this puzzle piece does fit in nicely.
Awesome. Jasmine, which of the interview tips really resonated for you?
So mine was actually modeling how you would be as a CSM in the interview. So making sure that you're following up, making sure you're creating that rapport with a person sitting across. So there's more than just that little box in front of you, and trying to get to know that person and building a rapport and getting to the actual person is super, super important for me in every single interview. It also helps you to vet if that's the type of company that you want to work for, if it's the hiring manager, that's who you'll talk to probably every single day. So get to know them. It's so important. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that was something too that Gary was talking about yesterday, was that one of the key things he looks for is rapport. He looks for the rapport that you build with him in the interview, not only because he'll be working with you, but because he knows that as a CSM, you need to be able to build rapport with strangers all day long, where you go in cold and you need to find a way to connect to them and make them feel comfortable and make them feel like they're going to have a solid business relationship with you, right? So he's looking for that in his interviews when he's interviewing, whether it's managers or CSMs.
And
And
Jan,
then, yeah,
I was sorry, I just wanted to add something to that because I actually had a third round interview today, and with one of with the person
Yeah.
interviewing me, she said, okay, well, great, Michael, like, let's dive right in. Why don't you tell me about yourself? And I said, hey, I'm happy to dive right in. However, I usually like to start off with a fun fact. And I was looking at your LinkedIn. I noticed, you've worked for the last 5 companies were in the Bay Area. Just curious, like, did you initially move there for your company? Did you go to school there? What's that been like? And then we just got into like a 5-minute conversation about how she loves the Bay Area,
Nice.
and that also made me just kind of like relax my nerves. Oh, cool. I'm talking to a person and we're having a good conversation.
Right. Yep. Anything to do it to make it conversational. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good. Is there, I think we've pretty much sort of gone over these general interview tips that we were talking about. Are there any folks who've been hiring managers that are here today that want to share any additional interview tips before we start diving in to practice our introductions? Feel free. I mean, anybody's, it's okay. You can speak up at any. Christine, you're off mute. So does that mean you wanted to share?
Not this time.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Chad, I know you've hired a lot of folks. Did you want to share anything in particular about what you see as good practices?
Yeah, I think one thing that I've been doing that it's been resonating very well is coming up with a headline. And your headline should really relate to that particular job. So as an example, the headline that I typically use is that I bring stability to chaotic situations. And usually the roles that I'm interviewing for, they're a mess. Like there's a lot of problems, and unfortunately, I may be replacing like an incumbent. And so just by saying that, it really resonates. And what I've realized and why it works is the interviewer will refer back to that later in the interview. And then I'll provide examples. So I think it's just a good way of introducing yourself.
Nice. So you make that part of your phrase when you're doing your introduction, when they say, tell me about yourself.
Yeah, I do. And the other thing that I emphasize is like at the start is some of my passions, but I also think about how it relates to the role. So as an example, one thing I realized, I'll say in my intros, the common thread throughout my various roles is that I look for companies that are, either creating categories or they're innovative or disruptive. And, if I'm interviewing with a company that's 30 years old, I'm not going to say that, but I'm typically not going to interview with that typical company because I know what I want and I have a good sense of that.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely part of the process when you're doing a job search, right? Is identifying what sort of roles, what sort of companies you want to look for. Yeah.
Yeah, because and when you say that those things, it will feed into the story that they've already created and what they're looking for, and that's another way of just building
that rapport. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. All right, Kevin.
Kind of like to piggyback off what Chad said, but a different form of headline. I'll tell a story about a time that I interviewed for my job at Ring Central. I was very in tune to what was going on in the local area, in the Bay Area. And there was a lot of rolling blackouts that were happening. So in my presentation for my final interview, I talked about disaster recovery and related it to the rolling blackouts that were happening in the Bay Area. As we were walking out of the interview, he was asking me, did somebody tell you that we're on a generator right now? Because it's very topical that that you mentioned this, and that was a difference maker in that final interview. So understanding what's going on in the market and the locale is also a great way to prepare.
I love that. That's really great. Yeah, how timely. Paul, what were you looking for?
Yeah, actually, that was really great feedback from Kevin and then from Chad before. So I'm not sure I can add that much to it. Maybe more of a mindset is something I might suggest, because the tactical things that they had mentioned, I think come to them naturally, and I think that everyone who's in this space right here is already looking to network and improve themselves, right? So you already have a leg up over everyone else who's out there. The vast majority of people aren't doing anything like this. Think of this in terms of the job that you're looking for. What I look for as a hiring manager is somebody who's acting in the interview process in the manner in which I want to see them act in the role. So if you're going for a customer success role, if you're going for some sort of customer engagement role, sales role, anything like that, to have that kind of approach during the first to get the attention of the interviewer so that you get selected to get an interview in the first place. And then during the course of that process, think of them as your customer, do your research, do your homework, relate, align, and make sure that you're standing out from the rest of them. And some of the tactics that have been advised on this call so far kind of align to that point of view.
Great, that's fantastic. Jillian, we'll have you be the last person to share before we start our breakouts. So everyone, as even Ty has said in the chat, should have a first draft of your intro ready to go. All right, Jillian.
Yeah, just a quick one from interviewing other people that I'm definitely going to keep in mind for myself in interviews is making sure to answer the question that was asked. So sometimes people kind of go off in a tangent, or they don't, you're sitting there thinking, oh, I didn't really get a read on what I was going for there with the question. So I think that's a really important one.
So true. In fact, that was one of the tips that we had there, I think. But yeah, be sure you answer the question, right? Because so many people do not. And while it is true, you want to have your top 3 sort of headlines or takeaways that you want them to know about you and a way to incorporate it no matter what. At the same time, if it's, if you are going to, I guess, if you're going to weave it in, you have to be sure that you're also answering their question, right? That's, yes, exactly what Jillian said. Forget what I said. Okay, so everyone ready? Yes? All right. I'm going to get, and I'm not only going to time it, I'm not just going to type it, I'm going to tell you when the 2 minutes have gone, okay? So you're going to hear me over the loudspeaker. So it's going to sound like the voice of Jen is coming in. All right, so 2 minutes, all right? All right, everybody head on out.
And we're back.
We had a great conversation in between those 2 sessions, and I didn't hit record. So I'm going to hit record, even though we should be going back to a 3rd round. Would people find it helpful to have a 3rd round, or do you want to just kind of share and ask more questions and kind of continue the conversation here?
Let's share feedback, Jan.
Okay.
I mean, we've all met some really great people. I'm sure we've got feedback.
Okay, great. Then why don't you start, Cynthia? What sort of things did you observe after doing 2 rounds?
Oh, see, this is what I get for saying something. Well, first of all, the 2 people I chatted with both had their like pitches like on point. It was definitely on point. Really just to me reinforced like being super concise, and then like trying to sneakily put in like your little like the skill sets that you can bring to specific roles in the first instance, and then also to networking in the second instance, right? Hey, here's what I'm about, but I really, at the end of the day, I'd love to learn more about you, because that's really what networking is about. Like I live with myself all day, and even though I think I'm awesome, I'm more interested in what other people are about. I think that's what networking really is, and so I think that was stressed. So that's what I've learned and has reinforced for me.
Awesome, great. Yeah, and were there others who did the networking option? Was there something that you chose to do with the networking option? Anybody want to speak
I
up on
did
that?
the
Yeah.
networking option if you'd like.
Mhm.
I think it's funny because the template for the networking option is extremely similar, if not the same, to the interview option, right?
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
the thing that I love most about it is it's just like we're trying to take everything. I guess we're trying to just condense things down. And I was talking with someone and they were like, they gave me their pitch and it was a great pitch. But I said, here were my takeaways from the pitch. And if you can just say 2 or 3 things, it's like, for me, I can say, I handle the new to renew process and I help others with that, right? That's something that people can then take away and go like, oh, okay, that's kind of what a CSM does in a lot of the roles or in the role that I'm currently in. And it's just a good way to establish a rapport and establish, more information about yourself in a really quick 1-sentence way.
Nice. Neil, before I go to you, Ty, I wanted to hear from you because I think you were just saying that
Yeah.
Trevor had a good pitch.
Both Trevor and Jonathan had great
Yeah.
pitches. Trevor had a line that I particularly liked. I thought it condensed really well. Trevor, would you mind sharing that line?
On it, put it in the chat now.
Yeah, that'll work.
All right.
But yeah, it was just I excel at taking complex information and condensing it down into actionable insights and plans.
Great line. Seriously, that's a great line.
I excel at taking complex information and condensing it into actionable insights and plans. That's cool.
So good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
It's a really
Awesome.
good one.
All right. Neil, how can we help you?
Well, what I did is I created 2. I
Mhm.
have my 30-second one, which is what I would use for interviews.
Mhm.
And for networking, I made one that's 10 seconds.
Mm.
Because I just didn't think there was a need for a 30-second one, because after the introduction at a networking event, then myself and the other person can spend another 30 seconds, 60 seconds talking, where each of us can go into more depth about what we do.
Great. Is there something in that 10 seconds that helps to spur on the conversation?
Well, I've just taken my 30-second one, chopped it down. I tell them I'm a customer success manager, in which I'm able to increase the customer retention rate up to 38%. And my superpower is building and maintaining strong, meaningful relationships.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And then do you end it with asking something about them or do you pretty much
yeah, we
hand
will.
it
I
over to
mean,
them?
yeah, we're just sharing
Yeah.
information back.
Got it. Cool.
Absolutely.
Great. Love that. Especially if you're in real life with people these days. It's nice to have a real conversation in person, right? All right. Mariana. Or is it Mariana? Sorry.
No, Marina.
Marina. So I didn't even say it right then. Well,
That's
hi,
okay.
Marina. Great.
It's usually mispronounced, so it's okay.
I liked what you did when you put it in the chat earlier when you introduced yourself. You said
yeah?
just like the boats.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
Marina.
what I use on Slack, so that when people read my name, they don't start in their head reading it the wrong way, and then I can never get it out of their head the wrong way.
Nice. Got it.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things I did is I know for my personal brand, like I want to come off as approachable, and I'm very kind of passionate and just have, I don't know, more high energy. So I modified the template a little bit, and especially in the networking one, made it more casual. So one of the things that I got good feedback on was saying, like, I nerd out on data and using more terms like that and talk to me about. So to just kind of make it a little more fun, because I think sometimes, especially in a lot of these events, things can get really dry. And for me, I want to, come off more approachable and engaging.
That's great for an interview too, in my book, but it depends on how formal the company is, I guess, right? If it's a very buttoned up company, they may or may not take to that.
Yeah.
Any
Which is
company
probably
I'm
not
in,
where
you
I want to
can-
be interviewing anyway.
Yeah, any company I'm
Doesn't
in,
work
you
for
can say you nerd out. All right. What other sort of takeaways or how did that feel when you were all of a sudden having to do this introduction? How did it go for folks?
I'm having a lot of fun meeting people.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we have some good conversations.
nice. Who did you get to meet today?
I had the distinct privilege and pleasure of meeting one Jasmine Reynolds
Yes.
and
Jasmine.
one Ashley Wallace and
Yeah.
also Everett Wallace.
Everett Wallace. Oh, somehow
Yes,
related
indeed.
to Ashley, perhaps?
A future customer success manager in the
Nice.
making, possibly.
Nice.
Maybe.
Special guest.
Here he is, the
Excellent.
special guest.
Oh, hi, Everett. I love that. That's fantastic. Great. Good. And then I think, Marianne, were you going to raise your hand? I thought I saw you raising your hand.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jillian, I had Marcar earlier and we had some great insights that we shared. And then I was in a room with Jillian and we mentioned adding metrics to your elevator pitch and how we both feel that it sounds kind of salesy and you don't, in everyday conversation, you wouldn't just throw numbers into them because they sound like you're pitching to this person and you don't want to sound like that. So Jillian had a great example of a line she threw in that was just like a one-liner that summed it up without numbers. It was just, Jillian, if you don't mind sharing what it was, it just showed the impact that she made without being salesy and adding number and metric to it.
Okay, Jillian.
Yeah, that was the one I was trying to figure out how to preface it. So an example of impact I've achieved in the past is that I would highlight is accelerating an onboarding, or I should add in their customer onboarding, that resulted in improved time to first value from 12 weeks down to 4 weeks. So there's a couple numbers in there, but it's less like, it's not like percentages and like things that would be very memorized kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's nice. Yeah, that's dramatic too, from 3 months down to 1. That's
Right.
Really
it's like a big impact with like minimal numbers. You know, I like that.
Great. Cool. Kathy?
Are numbers more
Mhm.
appropriate for managers and execs versus individual contributors?
I think numbers are always helpful, whether you're an individual contributor or a manager, but I think it's finding a way to feel comfortable and conversational in the way that you share that, you know, is probably good. And it sort of depends on if you're doing it as part of your headline or if it's you're backing it up in a conversation. But that gets into actually some of our sessions that we're going to have in the next couple of weeks, where we're getting into knowing what your story is and being able to share that. So that'll, you know, like even if you know one story well, like that's better than not knowing 3 stories very well, right? Kathy.
Yeah, I found myself doing something and I could not stop. I was speaking really fast. It was like I had to get all my words in and be impressive all in a short amount of time. So instead of being concise, I just talked faster. But I don't think I'm the only one. And I think, gosh, we're all running like our hair's on fire due to keywords. Hate that.
Well, and that's why what I wanted to do was give you this formula of a sentence, right? And so that if you have that and you've memorized that and that feels comfortable to say, then you have a concise way to put in the headline that you need. And then after that, if you want to embellish something, you can, and even that will feel comfortable because you know what structure of a sentence you're coming back to, right? So that's why I wanted you to just start with like a sentence. And this is something that Michael Hill and I were talking about earlier, you know, like, because he has a longer version. I said, no, let's just go with the short one. Because if you know that, then the other things you can embellish easily, right? And you saw that even from what I was going with, how I said GDM was what I had written there, but I could say go to market and feel comfortable. Right? That sort of thing. So like there are ways you can do your abbreviations even and feel more comfortable. Hey, Kim.
Hey, Jan. Thank you. This is great. This is my first
first time joining. So
well, thanks for going along on the ride.
yeah, no, I'm excited to connect with everybody offline as well. But I had the honor of connecting with Michael Hill for our breakout sessions, and it was outstanding. And one of the things that we talked about was our perception going into the interview. And I'm coming from sales, transitioning into CSM. So, and I've got 20 plus years in sales. So I look at interviews also as discovery calls, which in sales world is getting to know each other to see if there's a good fit.
Mhm.
And remembering that, you know, we're also interviewing the company for, you know, as is this the environment? Is this the role? Is this the team? Is this the vibe for us too? So it sort of gives us our power back a bit as well, because we go into that conversation with feeling like we're on equal footing, right, with the interviewer.
Mhm.
And then we get to relax a little bit more. And when we're relaxed, we can enter and be present and just have a real conversation. So discovery call is how I'm approaching, not my interviews, because interview feels more intimidating. Discovery call feels more equalized.
Yep, absolutely. And that allows you to make it more conversational. And so that instead of them just posing a question to you and then you answer the question and they come up with another question and you answer the question, and you feel like you're now in a, you know, quiz or something or a test or something, right? And that doesn't feel comfortable for anybody involved, right? If you can pose back a question to them, it's like, well, this is how I usually approach it. What about you? Have you found that? Oh, now they have to respond to that, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I love that, Kim. That's great. And you know, sales experience is great too, because then you also have experience with commercial situations and contracts and things like that too. That's always a great experience to rely on in CS.
I can leave with one more thought that
great.
Someone shared on LinkedIn about sales, and I think it applies very much to CSM roles as well as CS roles, is having a forensic approach, like being really curious about what their problem is, what their needs are, and just keep digging to better understand, right? Not, and then as you take a scientific or forensic approach, now it just feels natural, like you're just genuinely curious, like I want to understand that better. And then again, it gets our it just opens up our ability to communicate and share and draw more from that conversation.
Yeah. ABC, always be curious. Love that. That's fantastic advice. Well, thank you so much. I know that some people have to go. We're a few minutes over. Please, I put the link over in Slack, for Slack. Continue the conversation. Join the job search cohort groups, join the mock interview group, join the job search group. For those of you who are not job searching, that's great too. There's, if you look for the channels where it says share, there's share CS leader, share CSM, share transition to CS. So that's also a place where you can share. We also have people posing questions in the general chat, and people have been posting about events. We also have geo channels. People have been getting together IRL, that stands for in real life. People in Chicago and New York and different places, LA even, have gotten together in real life. I know it's like this whole new concept. Who knew that it could happen? Oh yeah, they used to do that in the olden days. Okay, so sorry, I'm in a goofy mood today. Thanks so much for riding along. Thank you, Jasmine and Michael, for being the guinea pigs and the volunteers to help put this session together. Thanks so much to all the volunteers today, Sharuk and Marianne and Jay and Michael, and I don't know who else, all these people who've been helping out. Cynthia. Oh, where is Cynthia? Cynthia, wave your hand. All the people who've been helping out behind the scenes and everything. Next week, we're going to be digging into the interview journey and what that looks like, from recruiter to hiring manager to panels, and kind of what's important for each of you. We have another takeaway. It's a spreadsheet where you can kind of put in questions and what the key things you want to share at each point in the journey. That's Kevin Leonore, who's here today, and also Seth Dovev is going to be help leading that. So that should be another good session. And then the following week, we're going to have another session with Ty Rhea, who's here today, and Jeremy Donaldson. So we've got some good stuff coming up. And then at the end of the month, we've got a great session with Cynthia and Marianne and Ashna. And so we've got a lot of good stuff coming up for you, and come and participate in the community, and let's all support each other.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Success Hour, formerly known as CS Office Hours. We regularly put out new content, so to be the first to know, like this episode, tap that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you soon.